All right, today we're going to get into something really fascinating: how some businesses manage to build these lasting legacies while so many others just flame out. We're going to connect a few really powerful ideas that together create this amazing framework for not just surviving, but actually thriving. So, why do some companies make it and others don't? Well, this explainer is all about answering that exact question. And the answer might surprise you. It doesn't really start with markets or tech or any of that stuff. It starts with something much more fundamental, something deeply human: the mind. Okay, so the first piece of this puzzle, the absolute foundation of this whole model, is what we call the core mindset. And yeah, it all starts with the leader, but believe me, it spreads through the entire organization like wildfire. So let me ask you something. When do you really feel smart? Is it when you're being totally flawless? Or is it when you're in the middle of learning something new? According to some pretty groundbreaking research by Stanford's Carol Dweck, your answer to that simple question says a ton about your core mindset. And that mindset, it has huge implications for your success. So Dweck basically breaks it down into two different paths. On one side, you've got the fixed mindset. This is the belief that your intelligence is just static. It's like a locked box. You've got what you've got, and that's it. So the main goal becomes just looking smart, no matter what. And that leads to, hiding your mistakes and blaming other people when things go wrong. But then on the other side, there's the growth mindset. This is the idea that your abilities are like a muscle that you can develop. Here, the goal isn't to look smart, it's to get smarter. And you do that by taking on challenges, by really digging in. Now, you can probably guess which one is better for a business. A fixed mindset, honestly, it can be a death sentence. It creates this toxic culture of what Dweck calls non-learners. You get a whole building full of people who are so terrified of looking bad, of making a mistake, that they just stop taking risks. They avoid the very challenges that would help them grow. They're choosing to look good today instead of actually being better tomorrow. And that choice right there, that's the real danger. I mean, just look at a classic example like the collapse of Enron. They were absolutely obsessed with hiring natural talent. These people who were just brilliant from day one. They created this whole world where looking smart was the only thing that mattered. So what happened? Nobody could admit they had a weakness. Confronting shortcomings? Impossible. It was a culture built completely on a fixed mindset, and, well, we all know how that story ended. Okay, so we've got our foundation, right? A growth mindset is what allows for learning. But what actually turns that potential into action? What gets things moving? Well, that's where the leader's purpose comes in. It's the catalyst. And this leads us perfectly into Simon Sinek's famous concept, the golden circle. His whole argument is pretty simple, but it's so powerful. He says every single organization on the planet knows what they do. Some know how they do it, but very, very few can clearly explain why they do what they do. And when he says why, he's not talking about making a profit. That's just a result. The why, that's your purpose, your cause, the core belief that gets you out of bed in the morning. And this distinction leads to two completely different ways of communicating. You see, most companies, they start from the outside in. They talk about what they do, and then they use what Sinek calls manipulations, price drops, special promotions, maybe a little fear to get you to buy. And yeah, that might work for a one-time sale, a transaction, but it's not going to build loyalty. The really inspiring companies, though, they start from the inside out. They start with their why. They're aiming for the heart, the part of our brain that makes decisions, to build real trust and a lasting connection. Let's use a classic example, Apple. Now, if Apple were like pretty much any other company, this is how they'd talk to you. They just list out their features and benefits, the what and the how. It's logical, sure, but does it inspire you? But that's not what they do, is it? Instead, this is how they actually communicate. They start with their core belief, their why, that they exist to challenge the status quo, to think differently. Their amazing computers, they're just the proof of that belief. And that's why people will line up for blocks for a new iPhone. They aren't just buying a product, they're buying into the idea, the identity. Sinek's big takeaway is this: people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
But here's the thing. A leader's why can't just be some slogan on a poster. For it to actually mean something, to really connect with people, it has to be communicated with genuine empathy and self-awareness. And that's where emotional intelligence comes in. Think of it as the toolkit a leader uses to build trust and turn their personal purpose into a mission everyone can get behind.
All right, so let's recap. We have a growth mindset that's open to learning. We have a clear purpose that inspires people to act. So what's the last piece of the puzzle? Well, it's all about turning that into a concrete business strategy, something that gives you a real, powerful competitive advantage. And the answer here comes from a really big idea from Michael Porter and Mark Kramer. It's this shift away from what we used to call corporate social responsibility to something they call creating shared value. Now, the old way of thinking, right, was that social and environmental problems were someone else's issue. CSR was just a cost of doing business, something you had to do for PR. But the shared value idea flips that completely on its head. It says that society's biggest problems are actually the world's biggest market opportunities. The goal is no longer just profit, it's profit with a purpose. And Porter and Kramer don't just leave it at the big idea. They give us a playbook. They say there are 3 main ways to do this. First, you can rethink your products and markets to actually serve real societal needs. Second, you can redefine productivity all along your value chain, becoming more efficient, using less energy, creating less waste. And third, you can help build up the local communities and suppliers you depend on, making the whole ecosystem stronger. And this is so important to get. This is not about charity. It's about being a smarter business. It's about seeing these huge economic opportunities that are hiding in plain sight just by reframing a social problem as an underserved market. I mean, when you think about it, this really starts to change the whole game of capitalism itself. Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, right? But what does it actually look like out there in the real world? What happens when you put all these pieces together? The growth mindset, the clear purpose, the shared value strategy. Does it really work? Does it lead to success? Well, the evidence is pretty overwhelming, and it comes from companies just like these. Think about Patagonia. Their whole purpose-driven mission around sustainability has built this incredibly fierce brand loyalty. Or Interface, the carpet company. Their Mission Zero goal to eliminate all waste, that sparked a wave of innovation that made them a global leader. And look at Unilever, integrating sustainability right into their biggest brands, which has led to stronger growth and way deeper engagement with communities. And this really gets to the heart of it. The main takeaway here is that by focusing on a real purpose, by creating value for more than just shareholders, these companies don't just do good. They actually build stronger businesses. We're talking about incredible loyalty, a culture of constant innovation, and a kind of resilience that's just priceless. These are companies that are truly built to last. So there you have it. The whole framework is really a journey that starts from the inside and works its way out. It all begins with that internal choice by a leader to adopt a growth mindset. That mindset then finds its voice through a powerful and clear purpose, a why. And finally, that purpose gets turned into a real-world strategy of creating shared value, which is what leads to that sustainable, thriving success we've been talking about. And that brings us right back to where we started, with a single, really important question for you. You probably know what you do in your job, and you know how you do it. But have you really thought about why? What is your why? Because finding the answer to that question, that is the first and most essential step toward building an organization that doesn't just get by, but one that truly, deeply thrives.